and he says, son, when I went about the business of the day, there was my happiness with me all the time. And that reminds me of Aristotle's comment where he defines happiness as a lifetime of virtuous activity. Not arriving at a particular place, not having something, not acquiring something, not being somebody. In other words, no end point, no fixed objective. But it's in the process of going about the business of life. A lifetime of virtuous activity. So you sit back and say, but happiness. What is happiness? Is happiness the product of, say, circumstances or surroundings or the acquirement of certain things or pursuing and maybe achieving success by somebody's definition? Is it money in the bank? Is it a lot of friends? Is that perfect relationship? Nothing wrong with any of these things. But is that where happiness is? There's a wonderful document, been around for 1,800 years or so, a little longer than that, that talks a little bit about happiness, talks about it in little terms in terms that we're familiar with, and it's called the Sermon on the Mount. In particular, I'm talking about the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes all start with the word, at least in the translations that we look at, the word blessed are or blessed is. You know, we got blessed are the poor, for they shall see the kingdom. Blessed are the hungry, for they shall be fed. Blessed are those who are weak, for they shall laugh. And it goes on like that. They say, well, you know, we're all familiar with this. It is pretty good, and it's okay stuff. And sometimes we want to argue with them because we wonder about some of the things that are really blessings to us, and do we want those kinds of blessings? But at any rate, that's setting aside. That's okay. When we look at some of the modern translations, and the one I'm thinking of right now is the Living Bible, which was a modern paraphrase of the Bible, we find a slightly different connotation that can make a big difference and really make us question some of the ideas. And that is where the word blessed has been replaced with the word happy. Now, the particular rendition that I like is the one of the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes, is the one that appears in the Gospel of Luke. And you know, Luke was a Greek, and he wasn't didn't write in the typical way, so he follows sort of his own interpretation of an awful lot of things. And he had sort of a condensed version. It's a Reader's Digest version of the Beatitudes or the Sermon on the Mount, if you want to go back and look that up in Luke. And listen to the difference. Slight, but an important connotational difference. Happy are you poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Happy are the hungry, for they shall be satisfied. Happy are you who weep, for you shall laugh. Happy are you when men hate you and exclude you and revile you. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great. You know, I'm not sure I particularly like that. I like the idea of blessed. You know, to be blessed is kind of like to be in some state of holiness. But happy? Is that what that means? Are the poor happy? Are the hungry happy? And so on. I think I'm a little bit more comfortable being blessed than I am happy with some of these things here. Or to put it another way, I would like to truly be able to experience happiness, but I find difficulty in identifying with some of these ideas as happy. And then I think about Mother Teresa. You know, Mother Teresa, she was canonized a few years ago, and a wonderful, wonderful woman who did lots of great works in India, working with dying people, hungry people, people in the slums. And you certainly could see how she's blessed, but happy under those circumstances? Several years ago, Pope John Paul II, I guess it was, visited her in in India. She was the first pope to ever go to India. I don't know if any of the other popes since have gone to India, but he was the first. And he got over there, and he was so impressed with her. He'd heard about her and all the accolades about this woman and the wonderful things that she has done. And you know, their vow of poverty, the Sisters of Charity, they're called. That was her order. Interestingly, I read somewhere one time, and I thought it's kind of interesting for for her to live at the state of poverty that she did. It sure took a lot of money. But at any rate, that's a whole other kind of a consideration. Anyway, he was so impressed with her when he got there that he gave her his big, beautiful white limousine as a gift. And she said, "Oh, thank you," and immediately had a raffle in order to make enough money to pay for to help some of the poor. Interesting, isn't it? And Malcolm Muggeridge, do you remember, any of you remember Malcolm Muggeridge? He was a great British commentator, journalist, author, poet. He died a long time ago, about 20 years ago, but he had a great impact on the world. He worked for, well, a lot of organizations in Britain. And he did an interview of Mother Teresa for the BBC. And he went through the whole interview with her, and he finally stopped at one point and he says, "You know, all you sisters of charity, you're so happy all the time. Is this a put on?" And she looked at him and smiled and she says, "No, it's not a put on." She says, "You see, what we have found out, that there is nothing that brings such happiness as working on behalf of others that are hurting." She says, "That's the only place we've been able to find this deep, overwhelming sense of happiness is in our contribution."